Hi everyone, Roger Connect, President, Universal Accounting Center. I've just come from a few client meetings, and in each of those I've had an excellent opportunity to discuss with them basically their current situation, and I felt it would be nice to share with the group here some of the things that I'm noticing over the last few weeks as I've been working with a variety of clients. And it's hopefully something that you can relate to, but also add to. I'm hoping that as part of a conversation, we can have comments below as to different things you're experiencing and suggestions you may also have for the group. And it basically boils down to this. A few weeks ago, as all this started to come to a head, you saw business owners that were being impacted, and we, with our clients, saw instances where people were actually confused. They were worried. This was impacting their revenue. And as you would expect, it was impacting their cash flow. And then at the same time, it was causing issues with regards to payroll and their employees. And as these things cascaded, it turned out that as they would work with us, it was questions really about the unknown. What do we do? Now, fortunately, we've experienced and had basically a work experience, if you will, back in 2001, when after 9/11 things impacted the economy, and then again in 2008 and 9 things impacting the economy. So having had experience with these, we have kind of a working model as to how best address these situations. And with that experience, we're able to really bring a lot to the table with these clients. So here's essentially what it was, and I'd like to see what you're experiencing. First, these conversations begin where there's oftentimes a little bit of emotion. There's fear. I just came from a client meeting today, for example, where it began with the owner being in tears. She happened to be overly frustrated, just came from a conversation with an employee that was really quite scared of the situation and really felt that they shouldn't be working and that the social distancing in the office wasn't sufficient. And so there was a state of panic. They weren't coping well. And as the leader, the owner of the company, she needed to kind of address this to figure out, okay, what plan do we put into place to keep the company viable, but also keep everyone healthy and sane. And my reason to bring this up is it obviously started as some other conversations at an emotional level. It was a sense of confusion, frustration. I specifically asked, how is she feeling? And she felt confused. And so I think those are very natural emotions for these business owners to be experiencing as they daily go through these new experiences. But as we spoke, one of the things that became very apparent is she was able to then assess and properly prioritize what are the course of actions that she needs to be putting in place as the leader to implement in her business. So here's essentially what's happening for me. Most of these conversations begin at a diagnostic level. You've heard me, I'm sure, before explain that I think this is our opportunity as accounting professionals to be business first responders. And so using that analogy, I first was diagnosing the situation. Tell me about your feelings. Tell me about what you're experiencing. Tell me what's going on. And as I'm diagnosing this with her, asking the right questions, I'm through that diagnosis able to get to more or less the underlying core concerns, those frustrations, the things that need attention. And then from that, we're able to get more into kind of a, maybe let's say a triage moment where we're able to prioritize and assess what needs to happen. And from that, she felt now, rather than reacting, she all of a sudden was able to switch to, I'm taking the initiative. I'm being the leader. I'm going to get ahead of all of this. And that really empowered her and other business owners that I've had this similar conversation to realize that they can in fact lead rather than be acted upon. Now the next thing is in this meeting, from a diagnostic kind of discussion, it led then into now an implementation. What are we going to do about all this, and how are we going to process it? And I'd just like to share what I'm doing. I'm starting with a quick assessment of their business to help them understand whether or not they need to move in one direction or another, close down, shut down, kind of take that approach of this is going to end, or I need to now aggressively resuscitate the business, get involved with the business, medicate the business, and then get to a point where we can come out of this and then go through a therapy type experience. So how that looks is I ask a number of questions, beginning with, in 2019, were you profitable? And the answer is yes. In every one of our clients that we're working with, they were fortunately able to say, yes, in 2019, we were profitable. Perfect. Second question, with regards to your business, as this year started, January, February, everything preceding the chain of events that began in March to really impact you directly that were different than the norm, was your business profitable? And every one of our clients, we've been fortunately able to hear the word, yes, I've been profitable year to date before all this came to a head. Perfect. Now, the next question is kind of a lengthy question, but it gets to the point, which is to say, when this is all said and done, we need to look at the seasonality of the business and realize, let's say that if this was over and it was back to business as normal, it's not going to overnight get back up to where it was. It's going to be a gradual kind of restart. So that being said, is your business seasonal? Which is to say, if you're a company where you make all of your money in the fourth quarter, but yet this is over in June, let's say, coming into July, August, are you going to be able to rebound? And the answer is no, because that's the slow season. That's when we're actually not doing well. We have to get through not June, July. We've got to get all the way to, let's say, October, November. So the bridge we need to be looking at isn't until the recovery and we get up and running again in June, July, let's say. It is literally as far out as perhaps October. And in her particular case, it was that far because she is a seasonal business, and generally speaking, her company is slow during the summer months. So if everything were to end and get back to normal in June, July, she's not out of the woods. She's got to get something that's going to extend her a little bit further. And the reason for this discussion was to help the business owner realize how much of a lifeline do we need to extend? How much do we need to expect to now work with this person, this business, and treat it so that it can survive this illness, this problem? And in her case, she was recognizing, I've got to get something that's a lifeline that will extend as far as, let's say, October. So that now allows us to then get into the nuances of, okay, of all the government subsidies, of the government loans, of the tax reliefs that are available. How do I go about applying for those, and which ones should I be applying to? And honestly, these have been evolving in the last number of days or week, in the sense that the federal government's come out with some, the states continue to issue new ones. All these things are becoming available, and as I post this video, there might be new ones tomorrow. But the answer to this is, in order to apply for all of them, you're traditionally going to need the necessary accounting information. So you're going to have on hand your last 3 tax returns, ideally. If you've not yet filed for 19, at least have available 18, 17, 16. But for the filing of the paperwork, you'll need those tax returns. You're going to need your financial reports, such as your profit and loss statement for year ending 19, 18, and 17. You're going to need your balance sheets for year ending 19, 18, and 17. And you need to have all these on hand to answer questions about your company. They're going to be asking about month-over-month revenue for 19. What were you making in January, February, March of 19? Then they're going to ask, what are your fixed costs for those months, January, February, March, April, May, June? And that fixed cost question is going to become very important as you determine your financial needs, how big of a line you're going to need, and how much is that going to look like. That financial assessment of your fixed costs for, let's say, March, April, May, June, all of those are going to become important because they want to see in issuing the loan, really, what do you need? So we've got to strip out any of the variable costs. If you were making 0 revenue in March, April, May of 19, what were your fixed costs? What would your fixed costs be in June of 2019 if you made 0 revenue? And that's going to help you understand really what kind of financial needs you'll have as a business in 2020, in April of 2020, in May, June, July. That then helps you determine what is your ask. What monies are you going to be needing to weather this storm, to get through this problem? This, in essence, is your business's ventilator. Now, as you go through this assessment, the business owner is starting to get clarity. Oh, okay, so this is really what I'm going to be needing and asking for. Now, it may actually come through the application of different loans and grants. You might get some monies from the state, some monies from the federal government, some monies from your bank, maybe with a line of credit and so forth. So there are a variety of things you can do. The way that we did it with this particular client is, first of all, reach out to the bank and see what can they issue as a line of credit without having to go through all the necessary paperwork. Typically, you'll have actually a threshold of about, say, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that just with a single form, a single page form, the business can ask for and get extended a line of credit. With the SBA, you can fill out the forms and get the federal monies available. You can go to your state and get some state money. Well, once you get these loans approved, you're going to then need to prioritize them. Which one do I tap in and use first? Ideally, it would be the lower interest rates or perhaps the ones that are forgivable. There are some that are being touted as possibly forgivable, but when you get those loans, it's very important that you clearly understand what criteria will need to be met in order to be forgiven. So in many instances, they're saying that you will retain on staff your employees, not furlough them, not unemploy them, but at the same time, you will also pay them 100% of their compensation. And that's looking back over their work history and seeing in the last number of weeks or months what was their average compensation, and you have to pay 100% of that. So you just need to find out what the stipulations are to see how do you become eligible for it perhaps to be forgiven. But once you prioritize those loans, you're going to say, okay, we're going to tap this one first, then we're going to tap this one, and hopefully we don't ever have to need this one, but this one's available. As a line of defense, those are your buffers. And it's almost like, here's what we're going to do as you get sicker and sicker and sicker as a patient. We're going to start with this medication. We're going to end with this one. All of these things help you as a business first responder know how to best treat this patient. Now, as you're working with your client, one of the things you have to understand is there are stages here. First was that initial conversation that is a diagnostic conversation. It's more of like a health check. It's getting their emotions and seeing how they feel about everything. Next is the consultative. It's sitting down and figuring out, okay, what are the needs? The needs assessment, it's determining whether or not they're going to be in trouble. Do they need to pursue getting these loans and such? That right there should honestly be something you're paying, or they're paying for. If they're a client of yours, they may be already paid and the fee they're paying is perhaps covering that. Otherwise, it's a fee that you can literally charge for your time in doing that diagnostic and that consultative service. The next one is if they need help preparing the paperwork, getting the financials, doing some of the loan submission, that's something you can easily be paid for and basically be compensated as much as $2,500. So $2,499, let's say. And with that in mind, you can be paid handsomely. That if you spent a day helping prepare those documents and submit the necessary forms with them and having them sign those, you could be paid $2,000 a day and do one client a day for those things. But the next thing I want to introduce you to is what's next. Let's assume that you've assessed their situation, you've actually helped them apply for and get these various loans and grants, but now what do they do with the money? This is where your role as a profit and growth expert, as their business first responder, becomes now very important. It's then you're providing the therapy as they implement and use these funds. How do you make sure that they use the money correctly and they don't spend it too quickly and they spend it on the right things? How do you help them manage their receivables and actually work through and get ahead of their payables? All of these things are critical. So it's one service to help them actually get these monies. It's another service that's going to be months, if not a year in duration, where you're going to now work with them on an engagement level that's different than just providing accounting services. It's now, as a business coach, helping them properly now use these funds to vitalize their business. It's the therapy after now the sickness is passed to get them back up to speed. Yes, you did the knee replacement. Yes, you did the hip replacement. Yes, you resuscitated them and boom, restarted their heart. That's all great and dandy, but their body isn't working as it should. The business isn't functioning at 100% yet. That therapy is going to be essential to their recovering quicker and more completely. And so that engagement becomes then the next step. I hope you can see there's 4 elements to this. the initial discussion, the diagnostic to really assess what's going on. If the company needs it, you come in and do the consultative service to ascertain their needs and determine what's going to be necessary. The third step may be appropriate, which is assisting them getting the funds and getting them the reports they need to apply for each of these, and you're paid for that. And then the last thing is they got those monies. They're not out of the woods yet. They've got to use them effectively. They've got to actually go through this therapeutic session of literally for the next year, perhaps do an engagement with you to ensure that their business actually lives and comes back as it once was, even perhaps better than it was in 2019. All of this is meant to illustrate that you have a very vital role in this process. As I'm talking to the clients, this is something that I'm experiencing now on a day-to-day basis. Literally before doing this phone call, spoke with another client and by phone was helping them actually go through a few things. My day, just like yours, I would imagine, has been spent in the last couple of weeks, a few weeks, having day after day conversations with a variety of clients, and it's all been transitioning to not business as normal. It's this four-step process. I have some clients that are still at that diagnostic level. They're just wanting to talk and kind of speak through things. I've got some that have worked into that consultative phase where we've done the assessment and analysis to determine their needs. And then from that, with knowing their break-even point, knowing their fixed cost needs, knowing their cash flow situation, we're able to assess what next. That third stage is literally getting into now and working with them to have all the numbers to apply and actually go through the application process. Once that's done, we're waiting and we're getting the approvals and the funds. That's only going to lead us to that fourth stage, which is then the implementation of this over the coming months and years, or hopefully not years, but the coming months or year, to help them literally get back up on their feet and give them the coaching they need to do this properly. So I hope you can see clearly how this is going to play out. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have experiences that you're having, share them in the comments. Let's share what it is we're doing with our customers and let them see what it is that they can be doing as business owners to really survive this economic and pandemic crisis. You are the business first responder. We can rise and as an accounting profession really make a difference here. So I implore, basically get out there, contact your clients, reach out to the business community, offer your time and your services, because you will be paid very handsomely for your helping them here as their business first responder. This is your chance to resuscitate them, give them hope, and help them out of the crisis that we're in. So with that in mind, understand this: accounting success is universal. Business success is universal. Take care, have a great day, and I look forward to your input. Bye-bye.